Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at histograms and how you can use Excel to make one. So just to recap what a histogram is, it's a lot like a bar graph. The most noticeable difference is that there is no gap between the bars. Histograms are used for quantitative data categories. The bars have to go in a natural order, and both the width and the height have significance. So usually to make one, you set up a horizontal and a vertical axis. The vertical axis is for the frequencies, which we usually just label frequency or something like that. The horizontal axis, usually, and I'll scroll down here on my example, usually you mark each of the tick marks with the lower value or the lower limit of each category. I have noticed that in the textbook for quantitative reasoning, some of the homework problems, some of the example problems I do, they don't mark it this exact way. So you may see it this way, marked this way, or you might see it slightly differently. Excel automatically does it a little bit differently, but I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Um, so you label both axes, and then the height of the bar corresponds to its frequency. So the taller the bar, the higher the frequency. And then you have to make sure you slap on a title. So we're going to look at a practice problem here. Use the following frequency distribution to create a histogram, and we're given exam scores for a math class. And so what I'm going to do is, if you haven't already, and you're going to do this by Excel, go ahead and type in something similar to what I have here, whatever your problem might be. I'm going to type in scores and the frequency and make sure they all match up, and then I'm going to do click and drag to highlight those. And then go to insert, and this right here is a column or bar chart. I'm going to click that, and 2D column. Now this isn't exactly what I want yet, because remember that a histogram has to have no gaps between the bars. So that's an easy fix though. If I click on one of the bars, or actually double click on one of the bars, then over on the side here, the pane should open up and I can change the gap width down to 0. So we're in a pretty good spot right now. At that point, with no gaps and also no border around the bars, a little hard to see. I'm gonna go ahead and put a border on by doing the fill in line button, and I'm gonna change the border color. I'm just gonna make mine black, nice and boring. I also need to make sure I have the titles for the axes, and this isn't here, so I'm gonna click on the graph this time, just the chart area, a little plus sign, and I can pick axis titles. And I'm gonna fix these so that way they match up with what I have. So what I'm looking at here are scores, and then this is the frequency. Frequency. There you go. And as far as the title goes, I'm just going to title it the same way that the distribution was titled, and it was called Exam Scores for Math 109. And at this point, we have a passable histogram right here. It has the correct labels. We got the scores, we got the frequency. We see that each bar corresponds to the correct height. So the less than 50 category went up to 3, and it does. The highest one was the 61 to 70 category, so that's the highest bar. And we're pretty good. I would save this, and I would call that okay. This isn't the exact same format as the typical histogram, where we have each of the edges labeled. Excel likes to put in the actual bins themselves. Like I said, I have seen this method in the quantitative reasoning textbook. You can check. I am using an older version of the textbook, actually. Hold on a second. So here's the previous edition of the book that I have on my computer. And you can see where they have a histogram. This one was ages of winners of Nobel Prize in literature. And you can see they set it up the same kind of way. I don't know why they have gaps there, because that's the one thing that we definitely can't change. There should not be any gaps with histograms, but you can see that they have the bins marked off here, and they did it here as well. But they do also show you the other way. So here's another example from the previous edition of the textbook. It should be pretty similar to the current one that we're using in this class. Here's a histogram. It does have a line chart on top of it, but if you look at just the histogram part, you see that the bars touch, which is what we need. And you can see that they labeled each of the lower values instead. So they're using this table here. And the lower values are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And then they went to 90 for the last one. And you can see that that's how they labeled it. Each label, each data value is right on a check mark, right on the line. That's normally how I see them. But like I said, they've kind of done it both ways in this book. I would double check the current version of your textbook. I don't have it with me right now because I'm working from home today. But I would check the current version of your book to see what examples they have. Maybe they have updated it. And of course, you can always reach out to your instructor to ask if they have a preference for how they want you to do it. Are they okay with having the bins down here, or would they rather have it the more traditional way? So you can always do that. But in general, this is how you make one in Excel. You can always, of course, do this by hand. You're just going to want a ruler because each of the bar widths should be the same. They should all be the same width when you draw it by hand. And of course, you want to have nice straight lines if you're going to do it by hand. So either way, whether by hand or Excel, this is a pretty decent histogram.